Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today we're going to level up a brand new rogue to Marksman 1 to 75, and we're going to base it around using Cinderstrike as our mana generator and Detonating Arrow as our mana spender. Now in this guide, I will be stopping at regular intervals every few levels where something special happens, such as a new skill opens up, or it's just been a few levels and I need to put my passives and my skill points in. And when that happens, I will go over exactly where I'm putting my points in both the passive tree and in my skills. However, unlike the other guides, I will not be going into the gear section. Instead, that's all going to be in the written guide. I'll be linking my build planner, as is the build for each of the levels that I stop at, so you can click on there, you can see what gear I was wearing. We'll also have a basic loot filter in that written guide, and then I'll also write out where I put them in case you want to read instead of watching the video. So feel free to check that out, it will be in the description. At the end of this run, you'll be able to transition into a full-on detonating arrow build, such as Lizards or someone else's that you have seen that has done an end game version of it, or you can do a Cinderstrike build from any of the content creators that have done a Cinderstrike build that you've seen and wanted to try out, or at that point you can start experimenting and doing whatever it is that you want to do. Alright, let's go ahead and get into it.
In the slums of Majelka, I survived by my skill and cunning, a rogue for hire. The wealthy of the city found me useful in making problems disappear. One job changed everything. A disguised Nagasa woman hired me for a hit on the vessel maiden Apophis. The day came. It was her first appearance to the public. My bow was ready. Apophis was in my sight, but just as I was about to loose the arrow, I realized that she was none other than the woman who hired me. Was this a trap? Some game among the priestesses? I wanted no part of it, so I fled. I now travel to Welvin, looking to put this kind of trouble behind me.
Alright, just a quick few minutes into the game and we are already level 4. Here are my character stats, and we now unlock the first skill specialization slot at level 4, and here we're going to go ahead and put into shift. It's going to be one of the main things that we use. You're going to constantly be using it to dodge attacks, to move faster, and it's going to help us heal in the beginning, since in the very early stages of the game you don't have much health regen and you tend to go through potions pretty quick. So we're going to go ahead and put 1 point in Shadow Recuperation, but we're going to be working towards getting the mana back when we use it, and then getting into that invulnerability and getting the haste so that we can kind of fly by a lot faster, and from there we'll dig into some other things expanding beyond that point. The next thing that we'll specialize into is going to be Cinderstrike. That's going to be our main leveling skill besides Detonating Arrow, but it'll be a while before we get into that. That's once you actually get into the Marksman tree. So shift first, and then our next stop will be at level 10 when we get Cinderstrike. For passives, we have 2 passive points at level 4. We're going to put both of them into Swift Assassin for a little bit more attack speed and for 2 more flat physical damage. Alright, that's going to be it for here. Remember, the gear and all of that will be in the build planner in the written description. So if you're wondering what I'm already wearing, which isn't much, that's where it'll be. Let's get back into it. Alright, we took down some bosses, gained a few more levels, and we are now level 10. At level 9, we unlocked our second specialization slot, which is going to allow us to finally spec into Cinderstrike now that we're level 10. So we're going to go ahead and put that on the bar. This is going to be our mana generator and a decent DPS skill throughout the entire leveling process. And right off the bat, we want to get more damage with it, so I'm going to go ahead and put 2 points into Infernal for that added 8 base fire damage for strike 2 and 3, and then for the first strike we're going to get 16. We're going to get double what the others get, so that very first strike, which is also an AoE attack, is going to hit really hard. After we max this out, we're going to work into getting extra area and a more damage modifier for that first attack damage. At this point we were using Flurry for kind of our main damaging skill, and we were doing melee with it, but now that we are done with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch. We found a bow that had 4 added fire damage to it. That's going to go ahead and help do the damage with Cinderstrike, so we're going to throw that on real quick. That'll be in the build planner. But back to skills, we got Shift, 3 points in Shift, 1 more point in Shadow Recuperation, and then 2 points into Swift Recovery. And then for passives, we're going to go ahead and finish off Swift Assassin with 6 points, and then 1 point will go into Guile for that dodge rating and poison resistance. Alright, let's go ahead and get back into it. Alright, a few more levels in, defeated some more bosses, and now we are back to the council chambers where we'll be heading southeast towards the surface. But before I leave, I wanted to give one more update. Here's my character stats, and then for skills, we're going to put 2 more points into Cinderstrike, both of which will go into Inferno, which is really starting to get some crazy damage and hit really hard on that first strike. For Shift, we'll be doing 1 more point into Swift Recovery so that we can get into that invulnerability while shifting, which will really help. Especially if you're almost dead, as soon as you shift, you'll stop taking damage, which is really nice. And then for passives, we have 4 more points, which are all going to go into Guile, or Guile, or however you want to pronounce it, for that extra flat dodge and poison resist, which is going to bring our dodge rating up to 15%, and we're trying to get that closer to 50% as we continue through the campaign. So be looking for a lot of dodge. It's definitely going to help increase your survivability, and on top of that, Void is probably the best defense you want to go for right now. You'll encounter a lot of Void early in the game, so be looking for a lot of Void resistance. Alright, let's get back into it. Alright, I've reached the Shattered Valley, and we are on our way just about to Edoras Temple. Level 19 now, which means we've unlocked our third specialization slot. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in my third skill for right now, which is going to be Shurikens. Now the reason I'm going for Shurikens is Shuriken's going to do a lot of shred for us. We're going to get 200% physical shred with it, which means that our physical attacks will do a little bit much more damage, which isn't going to be a lot because we're going to be doing fire and lightning, but there is melee physical on your bow, so Cinderstrike will do some physical damage. Lightning, however, converts it, so once we get to that, the shred's not as important. But we're also going to use it to spin around us. It's going to give us additional armor, and then it's also going to have a chance to pierce, which means it's going to do a lot of damage for us as it spins around and basically is kind of a shield for us, killing things off that get too close. Detonating arrow will be the fourth skill that we learn. So the first 3 points, I'm going to go ahead and throw all 3 of them into Alacrity, and that's so that we can start working towards having them cast around us. Then inside Cinderstrike, we're going to go ahead and finish off Inferno so that we have the maximum amount of points there for that first attack base fire damage of plus 40, which is huge. And then we're going to start working down towards the crit multiplier so we can get that 150% critical strike multiplier, which is huge for the build. So we'll put 1 point in both Soot and Ash and Pocket Sand. And then for shift, we're going to go ahead and put 1 point so we're invulnerable while shifting, and then 2 points in sleight of hand. So every time we shift, we'll now throw 2 shurikens. And when we max this out and we have the shurikens spinning around us, basically shift will auto cast shurikens for us. So it's spinning around us, giving us extra armor, and then all we have to worry about is using our bow attacks to kill the enemies. For passives, we got 8 more points. I'm only going to use 7 of them. I don't want to go above 20. I'm going to save the rest for when we unlock the Marksman. So for right now, I'm going to put 3 more points in Guile. And then I'm going to put 4 points in Sapping Strikes. And this means that Cinderstrike, which is a 0 mana costing skill, every time we use it, we're going to gain 16 health and 8 mana. So it's officially our mana generator at this point. Alright, let's get back into it. Alright, I've made it to the end of time, and I am now level 25. So first things first, once we're in the end of time, we're going to go ahead and choose our mastery. So once you get through the quest part and you get to the choosing of which mastery class that you want, we're obviously going to go Marksman, and this will unlock Detonating Arrow for us. I'm going to go ahead and choose that. Then for skills, for shift, we got 1 more point. I'm going to go ahead and throw it in sleight of hand. For Cinderstrike, I've got 2 more points. I'm going to put 1 into Culturize for that critical strike multiplier, and 1 point in ignition. I want to start working my way towards oil coating, and oil coating is going to not only give us more damage per stack for every attack that we've done with Cinderstrike, but as we work down, we're going to get to where we get more health and more mana for every time we use it after the first 5 times, but this will stack with our passive that gives us health and mana gain with it, which is incredibly useful, especially in rare and boss fights. And then for shurikens, we got 4 points. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 points, 1 point in thin shurikens and 1 point into blade shield, so that they will now circle around us, and then 2 points into pierce, so they have a 50% pierce chance. This is what you'll want to build into next, so they don't disappear on hit, but they're now going to circle us when we shift. Just a quick example of what that means: if I shift right here, you'll see that now they are circling me, and they have a 50% chance to pierce, which means after they hit, they're going to disappear after a couple hits, because that 50% chance to pierce is also 50% chance to disappear on hit. And then for passives, we have 7 points. They're all going to go into the Marksman, and we're going to put 5 points into Assassin's Quiver, and then 2 points into Draining Arrows. And that's it for now. We're going to continue with the story. I will see you at the next update. Alright, I just hit level 30. We're about to go into the boss on the Dreadnought, so we're going to go ahead, and before we take on the boss, go ahead and do a quick update. So for this one, here's my character stats, and then for skills, we have a couple of levels here. For shift, we're going to go ahead and throw the final 2 points into sleight of hand, so we get the 5 shurikens. For Cinderstrike, we're going to go ahead and put 1 point in ignition and 1 point into oil coating, so we can start getting those. We're now going to go ahead and bounce back and start putting back into Culturize for that first critical strike multiplier, because that's going to be our big damaging hit. But at least now when we get 10 to 12 stacks of oil coating, because we're doing a lot of attacks in a row, we're going to be getting some extra fire damage for that. And then for shurikens, we got 3 points. We're going to put 2 more points in ethereal blades to get the pierce chance up, and then we're going to put 1 point in abrasive arsenal. For passives, we got 6 more points. Gonna go ahead and put all 6 of them into draining arrows. Alright, that's it for this update. I will see you guys at level 34 when we put detonating arrow into the specialization slot. Alright, we are now level 34, and we have unlocked our 4th specialization slot. We are currently wrapping up our resistances. I still have yet to get any elemental, but we're doing just fine. The 65% physical, I think, is what's saving me, and then of course the necrotic is kind of what we've been dealing with those as recently, and we have a little bit of that, about half of the max. For skills, we got 1 more point for shift. For this, we're going to go ahead and start building into the haste, so we can start flying a bit faster through the map. For Cinderstrike, we have 1 more point. Going to go ahead and max out the Culturize. We're going to get all of that critical strike, and then we'll build more into the oil coating and the extra health gain as we get into that. We're actually having quite a good time with survivability right now. Not struggling at all. Our health regen with just the passive seems to be working just fine. So I'm just going to go for more damage. If you're struggling with survivability, maybe your resistances aren't as high as mine, I would definitely recommend getting into the Fire Eater so you can try and get more health gain on hit, especially in boss fights. After you get the 5 stacks, you're going to start being able to get that extra 18 health per hit, and that's going to really help regen your health quicker so that you won't die. For shurikens, one more point. Going to go ahead and put it into the physical res shred. And then if you're not shifting very often and you want a longer duration on this, I would recommend putting into the duration first, because it will last a bit longer. Right now it only lasts for 3 seconds, but I shift almost constantly, so I'm constantly getting them back up. But you can get it up to 5 seconds if you put 4 points in floating blades, so you only have to shift about half as often. And then for our 4th slot, we're now got Detonating Arrow. We're going to go ahead. Now this is going to be our mana spender. So we have a mana generator, which is Cinderstrike, and then Detonating Arrow is going to be our mana spender, and we're going to try and make it hit as hard as possible on top of having a huge AoE. So the first thing we're going to do is put 1 point in Shock Arrow and then 1 point in Sucker Punch. And what this is going to do is, now when you shoot, you're going to stick a target, an arming arrow, into an enemy. And then if you shoot it again before that arrow explodes, you're going to get 100% more explosive hit damage along with 100% bigger area of explosion. So this is going to make your damage a lot better with it, especially if you can get 2 of those hits in. And then we're going to increase the arming time. So I should kind of explain how this works. You shoot a target and it embeds a fire arrow that explodes 0.6 seconds later. Now if you shoot it again within that 0.6 seconds, you can make that first arrow explode with Sucker Punch and it'll do extra damage. You'll get 100% bigger explosion and 100% more hit damage out of that explosion. So what we're going to do is increase the arming time so that we don't have to try and get it in that 0.6 seconds. If we have closer to like 1 second, it's going to be much easier for us to do it because we don't have the fastest attack speed yet, considering it's still early game. So our next 3 points are all going to go into Beast Slayer Arrow, and what this does is this increases the arming time by 45%. It's also going to give you more damage the longer that the arming arrow is inside of the target before it explodes. So these points are going to increase your damage along with the Sucker Punch. You're going to get some big explosions going on this early in the game. And the way that damage stacks for this is you can keep building fire damage for Cinderstrike, because any added bow damage that you have is automatically going to be converted to lightning. So if you build fire for Cinderstrike, it's all converted to lightning the moment that you use Detonating Arrow, and the explosion gets 150% added effectiveness. So if you've got 10 added fire damage, it'll automatically convert over to lightning and it'll get 150% bonus, meaning you get 15%, or you'll get 15 added flat lightning damage for your Detonating Arrow attacks. That's why it hits harder and why it scales better, is because it's all in a single element and it converts all sources. So added lightning and added fire will all go lightning for it. Alright, for passives, we got 6 points. I'm going to go ahead and throw all 6 points into Woundmaker so that we can get some critical vulnerability chance. What this does is when you apply a critical vulnerability stack to an enemy, that enemy then has less critical strike avoidance, and you have additional critical strike chance against that enemy. So within a couple of hits, even if you don't have great critical strike chance, within a couple of hits, like rares and bosses, you're going to get to 100% crit really easily on an enemy, so that you can just take advantage of all that critical multiplier that we're getting inside of Cinderstrike and will eventually get for Detonating Arrow. Alright, let's get back into it. Alright, we've landed in Oboria, the land of the cold. And speaking of cold, make sure you have your cold resist as high as possible at this point. In fact, all of your elementals would be nice to have as high as possible because there's a bit of fire on the way through here too. But the cold hits hard, so make sure that you have it capped. And even if it is capped, you should probably expect to die a few times if this is your first time playing and you try to rush through, because rushing does not help you here. These are my current stats, and then for skills, we got one more point for shift. We're going to go ahead and put it in momentum for more haste. For Cinderstrike, one more point. We're going to go ahead and put it in cauterize for that critical strike multiplier. For shurikens, we have 2 points, both of them I'm going to put into floating blades for the duration. And then for detonating arrow, we've got 6 points. If you've been trying to use this, you've probably noticed it's not doing too much damage yet unless you have a lot of added damage. It gets a lot better, especially as we get up the Marksman tree. There's going to be 30 more flat added damage, and then as we get higher into bows that have a lot of added damage, the damage will really pick up. And then there's several things in this tree that we still have to get that's going to really increase the damage, which includes getting the tendrils, and it also the explosive multiplicative damage and more area for it down here. And then of course the exploding immediately. Once we get all the points, that's when the skill really comes together to be more damaging. Right now Cinderstrike is more of a survivability skill, and it's working just as well as detonating arrow. So for here, we're going to go with 2 points in fast shot, 2 points in arcing blast, 1 point in outburst, and 1 point in infused discharge. And we're going to be working our way down to get this immediate explosion, just so that you can get a lot more explosions a lot quicker, and it's going to feel better when you're trying to detonate the arrows and get through AoE for a bunch of trash mobs, or just be able to clear the screen much quicker. For passives, got 11 more points to spend in the Marksman. We're going to go ahead and cap out Woundmaker, so 4 more points there. We're going to put 5 points in Heightened Senses. This will give us more bow critical strike multiplier as well as some critical strike avoidance, which is really helpful. And then we have 2 more points which we're going to put into the Thief's Quiver so that we can leech some more of that life back to help with the survivability of replenishing our lost life. Alright, that's it for now. Let's go ahead and get back into it. Alright travelers, we are now in the Sanctum. We are about to take on Lyeth and then Lagon. I'll play both of those boss fights right after we're done with this update. We are capped on cold damage. We don't have as much lightning as I would have hoped for. Now would be a good time to have 75%, but at least the cold will help us a little bit as well as the physical. For our skills, 1 more point in shift, gonna go ahead and put it into momentum again. For Cinderstrike, we got 1 more point, gonna go ahead and put it in cauterize again. For shurikens, we're gonna go ahead and go with 1 more point in duration, and then 3 points for detonating arrow. We're gonna go ahead and put 2 points into the arcing blast for more of the lightning tendrils, and then 1 point in well crafted for some more explosion damage as well as area. For passives, we've got 6 points, which is perfect because we're going to put 6 points into Sniper's Gambit for 30 more bow physical damage. Lightning Blast will convert all of this to lightning. Cinderstrike, which is fire, will not convert it, so it's more physical damage, so it doesn't synergize very well with Cinderstrike, but with Lightning Blast, that's 30 more lightning damage for you, which is going to make Lightning Blast really pop now. And it should have already been popping for you. You probably noticed that as it's leveled up, but now it's really going to be popping. And let's go ahead and do the boss fights, and I'll see you at the next update. Alright, we beat Lilith, we beat Lagon, and we beat Abomination. So now we move on to the next timeline, and we're level 55 at this point. This is a look at our stats, and then for skills, we have 2 more points for shift, which we're going to go ahead and put 2 points into getting more dodge rating per point of dex that we have. Then we have 2 more points for Cinderstrike. Going to go ahead and finish off Catalyze and then move on down to Combustible so we can get into more health and mana gain out of it, as it is our mana generator. Then for Shurikens, got 2 more points. Going to go ahead and finish off the Floating Blades and then 1 point in Bladed Armor so that we'll get 10% more armor per Shuriken. Right now that'll be 50% because we'll have 5 of them. 2 more points for Detonating Arrow. Going to go ahead and throw both into Well Crafted. And then we spec'd into Smoke Bomb at level 49, however haven't put any points into it yet, but we're going to build a defensive and give ourselves crit chance. So we're going to go ahead and max out the duration of it, then we're going to put 1 point in Shrouded in Darkness so that we can get more stacks of Dust Shroud. It'll give it to us every second. Then we're going to go ahead and max out the Shadow Hunter so we have more base crit chance with bow attacks, and then 3 points in Rapid Concealment so that we'll get more Dust Shrouds more often. For passives, got 10 points. We're going to put all 10 points into Ethereal Arrows, and then next we'll be building into getting increased Detonating Arrow Explosion Area. You can get another 40% up here. And that's it for now. I'll see you guys at the next update at level 65. Alright, we beat Rhea, we beat Lagon, and we are now level 65, and you can see we've been working on our resistances, working on our defense. We have a bit more dodge, a bit more armor, needed a little bit more survivability. We definitely had to cap the void resistance to beat Rhea. We died a couple of times to him. He is a beast, but anyways, we did prevail, and now we have some more skill points for our trees. For shift, 2 more points. Gonna go ahead and put both of them into elusive, and then for Cinderstrike we have 2 more points. Gonna go ahead and put both of them into fire eater. For shurikens, 2 more points, both of them into bladed armor. For detonating arrow, we're going to finish off Beast Slayer arrow, and we're going to put another point in well crafted. And then for smoke bomb, we have 3 more points. We're going to finish off rapid concealment, and then we're going to put slow and armor shred on both of those debuffs. For passives, we have another 10 points. We're going to go ahead and max out the health and bow damage leashes health so that we have a little bit more survivability, and then 2 points in Master Archer to get that detonating arrow explosion area. Alright, that's going to be it, and I will see you guys for the final update at level 75. Alright, we've hit level 75 and we are at the end of the rope here. We are still working on our defenses. We're just kind of swapping stuff around all over the place, and for the most part it's actually just been working really well, so I haven't invested too much time in actually crafting. I just hit the last few levels, did a couple of arena pushes to get there, and here we are. And for skills, our final placement will be 1 more point in each of them, 2 for smoke bomb. And with shift, we're going to go ahead and maximize elusive. For Cinderstrike, we're going to maximize fire eater. For shurikens, we're going to go ahead and put 1 more into the abrasive arsenal for some more shred. For detonating arrow, we're going to go ahead and do the rapid detonation, and then 2 more points in smoke bomb, and we're going to throw them both into expanding larger or expanding faster so that we can have an easier time being in it. And at this point, Detonating Arrow and Cinderstrike are both in a good place. You can continue to use them together and continue on through the story. You can go full on and just go Detonating Arrow if you want and switch to a different mana generator such as like Flurry. If you like Cinderstrike and you like it more than Detonating Arrow and you're not using Detonating Arrow at all, even though at this point it's doing like 3 to 4 times as much damage and it has a much bigger AoE. But if you don't like Detonating Arrow and you want to use Cinderstrike, you could throw Decoy or something else instead of Detonating Arrow in there. You got a few options there. For passives, we got 10 more points. We're going to go ahead and put 5 points in Barrage of Pain and 5 points in Perfect Aim, and this is going to increase the amount of critical strike damage that we do. And that's going to wrap it up for this entire build. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you didn't have any problems leveling. If you did, if something maybe I left out that was hard for you to figure out, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. And until next time, stay safe, travelers.